Hi, I'm Jessica Bayhall with Great Rivers Regional System for Addiction Care, and today we are continuing our "This Is My Story" series. And today we have, excuse me, today we have Drew with us, and Drew is going to be telling his story. And so, Drew, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks. My name is Drew, and I'm a grateful recovering addict, and my clean date is June 7th, 2014. Um, I've been around recovery a little under 10 years now. I was born in a little town of Weston, West Virginia. I was born October 4th, 1985, so I'm in my mid 30s, and I had a pretty good childhood. I'm a baby of the family. I have an older brother. I come from a caring family, mother and father, and in our little town, we had a daycare center that my mother ran, and my father cooked there. So I was well plugged into the community. Really normal, involved in sports. School really did really good at school, and I learned from a young age, that I was kind of entitled because at the daycare center there's rules, and I remember being a little kid and not having any kind of rules. I could go in the kitchen, I could go next door to my grandma's. I had to run the place, so I learned like rules didn't apply to me. And that's hard as a kid because you see all these other kids not being allowed to do stuff, and I'm the same age, and I feel like I'm entitled. So I think from a very young age, my perspective of the way the world worked with rules kind of changed. And as I got older, people wanted to put rules and put boundaries on me, and I just wasn't having it. So I got into middle school, and I was popular, but I had a lot of different friends. I don't want to say I was in a certain clique, but I can remember being like a chameleon. I could blend myself in with any kind of friendship or people that I needed to be. I could say what I needed to say or hang out with who I needed to hang out. And a lot of my friends told me that I was the glue of people. Like I was the middleman. People weren't usually friends with other people unless I was involved in that. So I can remember just kind of adapting and doing what I need to do to survive. And alcohol was a big part of my family because I was raised Catholic, and so alcohol was very normal to drink Friday, Saturday night, go to church Sunday morning, do the same thing over again through the week. Um, I've very lucky that I was introduced to my higher power from a young age, who I choose to call God. But I had some issues with the Catholic school. Growing up, I was taught to be a fearful God, to be honest. In third grade, I had an issue happen in school, and I was the 12 apostles, and I was the biggest and tallest. And I can remember walking down the aisle, and I was the last one, and I stopped to wait, or I was waving at my mom, and they all stopped, and I didn't. And I knocked all the kids down like a domino effect. It was really funny. The church laughed, and I thought nothing of it. And then nun took me in the back and like hit me a few times and said I stressed God and just like shamed God and made a big mockery of it all. And like I felt so much shame and guilt from that. And I told my parents, and they moved me out of Catholic school. And I can remember just having a bad taste in my mouth about religion and how my higher power viewed me. And they told me I had a sin cup, and if I did too much sin, I was going to go to purgatory or hell. And it just wasn't a caring, loving God that I know today. So fast forward a little bit, I get into high school. And with any family with alcohol, you have your home remedies that they did for colds and stuff, and drink alcohol and snuck my dad's beers and that kind of stuff. But I never really tried drugs. Um, and then I can remember being 16 and going to the state basketball tournament in Charleston. And I went with my brother and his friends. And I've always looked up to my brother and sought his approval. And, his friends are partying on a bus. And we had the 15 passenger van daycare bus as my brother drove it around. And so there was a group of us that went down there, and they were doing smoking weed on the bus, and I wanted to try it. And my brother was against it. He was no, no, no. And I was back there, like I said, I didn't know rules. I didn't do boundaries. So he told me no, and that made me want to do it even more. So I smoked some weed and went to the basketball state game, and I just felt like I found something. I don't know, like that was my clique. That was what I wanted to do. And that went on a little bit, and then I was really into sports. And when I was in high school playing basketball, I broke my ankle and got introduced to pain medicine. And for 18 months, out of about 30 months, I was on crutches because I broke my ankle, blew my knee out, kicked my hip out of place, and the doctors just kept throwing pain meds at me. And my mom didn't know the difference. I mean, but in 2000s, just pills were pills, and she gave me my prescription, not knowing. Just here, it's not hydrocodone, it's Lortab, it's something different. It's not a narcotic. She doesn't know, and I have my own prescription. And what happened was, I can remember this. I was taking my medication and I missed a dose, and I got scared because I didn't want to be in trouble that I'm not taking my medicine as prescribed. So instead of telling on me, I doubled up the next time. And I felt that warm, fuzzy feeling, and like just it reminded me of smoking pot again, and I felt a connection. And then I started missing doses on purpose to double up and double up. And there was 9 months of me straight taking pain medicine, and the doctor says, "Hey, it's been 9, 10 months. You shouldn't be taking pain meds anymore. I'm gonna have to stop you." So here I am, 10 months in with a pill addiction. I don't know it because the doctor cuts me off and says I got to stop. My body doesn't know if it comes from the streets or from the doctor, and I'm in withdrawal mode. I don't know what that is. So this was early 2000s, and so I start pill seeking. I find my friends who don't know about it. I read their cupboards, read their parents' cupboards. I'm starting to do stuff that I know right from wrong. I was taught from a young age the morals, and I threw them out the window. Um, I've always been told, and I truly believe it, that I wasn't a bad person. I had a bad habit that made me do bad things. And that's just not who I was. And that continued on in high school. And, I partied, I threw parties. My parents loved me and gave me the best opportunities I could, but I was a manipulator, and I threw parties and started trying different things. And I was at the point where I even had pride about getting other people to try drugs. Um, that's not who I am. That's not who I wanted to be. And that rolled over into college, and I got into WVU, um, and was lucky. I wanted to be a civil engineer, and that's what I was programmed all my life to, like, love math, and that's what I wanted to do. So I went into civil engineering, and I maintained. Stayed under the radar, bought stuff off the streets, this and that. And then my senior year came, and I was getting ready to graduate, and people below me was talking about some painkillers, and they're OxyContin. Not to be drug specific, but that really changed my addiction when that stuff come around. That was 2008, 2009, and when I got introduced to that, um, my addiction really advanced. Um, by the grace of God, I graduated college with a degree, with a civil engineering degree, and that's amazing in its own. And then, anybody with a degree should be able to get a job. I played the excuse I wasn't ready to grow up. I couldn't pass a drug test, so I knew that, and I had a friend, and we started dealing drugs. And you know, I love my mother, and the parents give kids the benefit of the doubt. But like, I think she knew, but she didn't want to know. I didn't have a job for a year and a half, and I had Jordans. I had new clothes. I wasn't doing anything. People were stopping at my house, and it was just like, "Oh, mom, I just, my best friend bought me Jordans." Like, that just, that doesn't happen when you don't have a job. And that's kind of how I went on. And I kept using and using, and it came to the point where I had lots of money and was nodding out. My brother saw it, and he kind of told on my mom. And one day I remember coming home, and my mom says, my mom told me, "Hey, your brother told me what's going on." And I was mad because my brother used dope. My brother was used drugs when I was younger, and it made me, call the kettle black. He's the one who told on me, and I'm like, "Who are you to tell me I have a problem?" Our addictions were different. Um, so my mom, the person that she was loving, said, "We'll help you. We'll get you into rehab." I was the type of person that had to go to rehab. I couldn't stop on my own. I couldn't just cold turkey on the couch. Um, so we came up with a plan and found a rehab in North Carolina. Um, right before this, though, I had moved to Georgia to try to get away from it. So that was the first solution. Instead of going to rehab, let's get you out of this place. And wherever I go, I take me with me. So I went to Georgia and lived with a family member and was there for a few months, and I ended up getting clean. And then, move location, you take you with you. Drugs in the South were cheaper, and I gravitate towards people that are just like me. So I ran into people, made connections, and I started sending them back to West Virginia, using drugs with my other family members down there. And it got bad, and I ended up meeting this girl down there, and she occupied my time. I don't want to say that I fell in love with her. I fell in love with the idea of her, and I was lonely and bored and using drugs, and um, gravitated towards her. And we stayed together for almost a year. And while I was down there, and I got my aunt moved out of my aunt's house, and it got really bad. My nephew or my cousin ended up going to rehab around this time, and my mom knew something was up, and I was about $3,000 behind on rent, and I remember just being paranoid, leaving my house knowing the landlord was going to come by. I would drive around in my vehicle for hours, scared to death he was going to knock on my door and ask for money. So I just went and got high. Power turned off, water turned off, and all the stories I could think of. He told my mom that I should have been a car salesman, because I had an excuse for every time. Everything he came over, he'd say, "Man, I believe Drew. He told me this story, and I felt bad." And I manipulated everybody around me. My girlfriend at the time, she must have thought, she told me she thought I had Crohn's disease because I lived my life in the bathroom. I had an excuse for everything to use the bathroom. And whenever all this came to a blow, um, her family thought I was coming over to ask her to marry me, and I was coming over to tell her how to go to rehab. So it was a big shocking blow that was part of it. They thought I was coming over to ask their daughter's hand in marriage, and I'm coming over to tell them that I have an addiction and I'm going to rehab. And that was one of the hardest things I had to do. But I prayed the night before my mom showed up at the door, like I've never prayed in 25 years of my life. I said, God, I can't do this anymore. Either take my life or change something. And behind the scenes, God works in our ways. He's the puppeteer. And my mom was already in Georgia, and I didn't know this. She had driven down, was talking to my aunt, and I got a knock on my door the next morning. And my mom said, like, "Hey, what's up? Something's wrong." And I was like, God, how'd you get my mom here so fast? I'm 13 hours away. What happened? Um, and to justify it and tell my story, I told her it was a gambling addiction, because I gamble too, cross addictions, things bleed into another, we replace. And gambling sounds better than pills. So that's what my story was. And we drove from Georgia back to West Virginia. And at that time, my aunt told me, never come back to my state. I don't want you in my state again. You're not welcome here. Don't come back. And I had burned that bridge. And as we got closer to West Virginia, more of the truth came out. It was a 13-hour drive, and being with my mom, who's my best friend, I started to tell her more and more and more. And I got to West Virginia, and she said, "Well, let's get you into a rehab. If you're willing to go, I'll help you." And I said, "Okay." So I went to a rehab called Pavilion Place in North Carolina. And I went there and had no idea about NA, any recovery. I didn't know there was. I heard of AA because my dad had gone a couple of times, but I didn't know there was a place for drug addicts called NA. And I get introduced to this, and I remember telling war stories and sitting there talking. And in the first 6 months of my recovery, when I first started, I couldn't get my name out. Hi, my name's Drew, without crying, snotting, emotions going everywhere. It was all foreign to me talking about feelings, because in my family we didn't do that. We're men. We cover it up. We don't talk things out. We just kind of deal with it, keep it inside. So I'm in rehab in North Carolina. I don't know anybody. It's a 42-day program. And for 30 days, I'm adamant, I'm going home. I'm going back to West Virginia. I'm good. This is all I need. And I talked to my mom on the phone a few times. And the day 29, my mom was like, "You can come home. We got you. You're good. You can come back." And on day 30, I called her, and she's like, "You're not welcome back to the house." And I was like, "Who'd you talk to? Someone brainwashed you. You've been adamant about me coming home. I've been coming home, and now you're like, no." And she's like, "They say you need aftercare, that you shouldn't come back to where you were. You're my best thinking got me there, so why would I go back to the same environment?" And I was pissed. I was mad that my mom was on my side, and then she was like, "Nope, can't do it." Then someone told me that really helped me make the decision. They said, "Drew, you know what's going on in West Virginia. Every day of the month, you can say who gets their script, who does this, who's getting that. Why not try something different?" And that for whatever resonated with me. And I said, "Yeah, I can always go back home." So I ended up going but I had to have it my way, because I don't like rules and boundaries. So I said, I'll go to a halfway house for 1 month. That's all I'm doing, 30 days. Needless to say, I couldn't go to this halfway house. The minimum was 6 months, but they didn't tell me that, because I would have flew the coop. I wasn't doing that. I said, I'll do 30 days. And I went to South Carolina in Greenville, and ended up falling in love with this place. Had people around me, really got a fire for recovery, and like how God works in mysterious ways. I had a job in Georgia. It was a really good job, and I had to be told them I was going to rehab. And through this process, I picked this random town in Greenville, South Carolina, and a few months later, come to find out their home base was 2 streets over from from my halfway house. So I got reconnected with them and got a good job, and like showed me that I was on the right path. Um, and I stayed in that place for actually 9 months, and I ended up living with 3 guys from the halfway house. Um, and I had about 11 months clean. And one of my dear good friends, he was 20 years old, getting ready to turn 21. This time they were into some other drugs, and my roommates were in relapse mode. And I didn't know this. I was in recovery, and I got a wake up call. My roommate came in at 4 in the morning and said, "Joe's dead. Joe's dead." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And they would use some substances, and he must have had a mental break, and he left in the middle of the night, and ran a red light and hit a semi truck and died instantly. And we couldn't tell his family. We didn't know because his phone was with him. We saw it on the news. My roommates were freaking out, and I didn't know what to do. And I went to a meeting and couldn't handle my emotions, and I left, and I went home and sat in his room, and I found some marijuana and smoked it in his memory because I wasn't ready to fully surrender, and sent me right back down relapse road. So now here I am in a house with like-minded people that are not trying to stay clean, and got introduced to a whole other categories of drugs. And I didn't want to be clean, so I was in relapse mode and did that for about a year, and um, was using drugs the entire time, working for the government, doing this and that as a job. And I cleaned up a little bit and found out my dad was sick. He suffered from the disease of alcoholism, and he's a diabetic as well as I am, and had an amputation done at this time, had his leg amputated. And I came back home um, and got a job working in the oil field because it was big in West Virginia in 2013. Um, and I came home and started to work and take care of him, live with him. And he was still in full mode of alcoholism. I was working, making so much money. And that job made me stay in a hotel out of town. And I got disconnected from my higher power, from recovery, working so many hours, 70 hours a week. And I ended up having too much money and too much time. So I started using again, and sleeping with prostitutes, and just finding a way to fill that void. And it just didn't happen. And eventually I caught up with a drug test, and I passed the P test, and then ended up failing the hair follicle, and they let me go. Um, and then a few months later, um, I just didn't know what to do. I was done. I told my mom the truth again. She found some drugs on me, said, "Drew, we've already got you clean. You're on your own." So I was in full relapse mode, using my drug of choice, which is opiates. And I was really at the threshold of crossing the line to use the needle. I know that's different in people, how they use it, not to glorify anything, but I was there. I had access. I was contemplating it, joking about it, talking to people about it. And by the grace of God, I didn't cross that line, but I was there ready to. And my mom said, "We love you. I've already got you in rehab, but I'm not helping you. You find your own place. And once you get clean, I'll help you. I love you, but I'm not doing it for you again." And I lay drunk on a boat for a couple of days, not knowing what to do. And she said, "Hey, your phone's being cut off." It was the hardest thing to tough love. Um, I almost OD'd on her birthday. I took too much, and remember laying in bed, not being able to breathe, and just being like, "God, I'm done." And she came to me and said, "Drew, I'm not going to let you die in my house, knowing what's going on, because you're going to die, and I can't live with that." And she talks about her story. It was one of the hardest things she ever told me of tough love. Like, you're going to die. I see it's happening, but I can't allow that to happen in my house, so you got to go. So I did it. I went to the boat, and I called her, and she said, "Hey, your phone's going to be turned off Friday. You got 2 days to find some help." And I went and found another little halfway house in Upshur County, went into detox. And this was the beginning of June 2014. And I remember laying in the detox bed, and I was sick and tired and done. And they, were giving us withdrawal meds. And I remember waking up after like a 12 hours sleep. And this dude was sitting in front of me and above me laughing. And I opened my eyes and it was somebody that I had been in recovery with before. And it was so reassuring. God had put him in my life there at that time to say, this is okay. I can do this. I'm not alone, because I was questioning it again. And I got through the detox and went to the halfway house. And that was in June. June 7th was that day. I went into June 6th, and then June 7th is my clean date. And I went to that halfway house for 2 months and had to start over again. And I got an opportunity to work as a BHT at Bob Mays Recovery Center in Clarksburg. Kathy Love was the director there, and she had an interview with me. And I'd only had 60 days, and clients in there had more. And I had been in recovery, had almost a year clean, and had a couple tries at it. And we talked, and she said, you were honest with me about your clean date. I'm going to give you a shot. Usually the requirement's 12 to 18 months, but you've been around recovery. I want you to work. And I never thought I'd work in the field. So I took that job. And God just opened up so many opportunities since then. I worked there for a few months, and I left the halfway house, and I was 6 months clean, and I lost my dad. He had tried to commit suicide a couple of times before that, but he had ended up passing away, had pneumonia and a stroke and a heart attack. And I was only 6 months clean, and I got through that. I used the fellowship, and my sponsor and people in the program checked on me, and I didn't have to use through that. And one of the sayings they say is you don't have to use no matter what. And I didn't hear that the first time. And this time at 6 months clean, I heard that, and I held on to that. I don't have to use no matter what. And it wouldn't glorify his passing. He didn't have to see me use at the end. I got clean, and I stayed clean, and I've been clean ever since. And I hold my hat on that. I'm really proud of that. But working at Bob Mays, I did that for a year and a half, and I met a weekend counselor. And he later became my spiritual advisor, my boss, my best friend. He married me and my wife a year and a half ago, and he's the director of the Doddridge County Day Report Center. And took me with me. He said, hey, I got a job. You can come. And I just kind of, took a suggestion and followed him and said, if you want to come work, we can come try out. You can be an officer. You can be a counselor. What do you want to be? And I said, which one made more money? And he said, a counselor. And I said, all right, I'll do that. And that's what I wanted to do. And he said, well, if you're a counselor, you have 5 years to get your certification, your degree. And I said, okay, sure, whatever. I just wanted to make more money. So I went there, and that opportunity led to me going back to school. I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I met her on a dating app, and we started to see each other, and life started to unravel. And I stayed involved in the program and started really connecting with my higher power, and working in the field is completely different. It's a completely different mindset. Like, my job is not my recovery, but it's a big part of it, if that makes sense. There's a lot of stuff you take home and working in the field. For the first year and a half, I used to always say, oh, honey, I locked up so-and-so today. And I took that heavy with me when I went home. Now they locked themselves up. They had every opportunity to stay clean like every other person. They chose to do that. There is truth when someone told me a long time ago, you kind of have to be emotionally disconnected somewhat from the job because it's draining. We work in a field that's not 9 to 5, that it's all hours of the day, that it's all hours of the night. It's there in the back of everybody's mind, and you can't just close the office down and go home. It goes home with you. But I stayed there and the opportunity, and ended up going back to school with the encouragement of my wife. And I got my master's degree in drug and alcohol counseling. And then I pursued that and got a recovery coach because it was presented to me an opportunity. And I got my peer recovery support specialist certification. Just by like following suggestions. Hey, you want to do this? Yeah, I'll take the next door that God's put in front of me. And then, that led to, well, since you got the degree, why don't you get your ADC certification? And I met some great people in Anchor Recovery and Ascensions Recovery in Morgantown, and just all these opportunities that God has presented to me that I got out of the way. I followed the path of what my higher power asked me to do. I don't always get it right. But I stay vigilant and work a program and stay involved and help people. the message is hope and the promise is freedom. And I truly believe that. Like, hope is the last thing that goes. I don't care what goes on in our life. I don't help people. God's worked through me to help people. And if I can instill hope in anybody, like, that's how it is. I have 6 years clean and I still consider myself a newcomer sometime. And I've had regained so much relationships through recovery and staying clean. That aunt that told me to never come back to Georgia has welcomed me with open arms. Like, people trust me. They give me the keys to their homes, and that blows me away. That I was told to get out of the state, and she's like, "You can come stay whenever you want." And my family really believes in me and supports me, and I have a wonderful wife who supports me. And she's not one of us. She's not an alcoholic or an addict, but she chose early on not to drink, to be just supportive. And that's the kind of people I need in my life that back me, and I back her. And today I'm a father too in recovery. That I have a little girl. She's 3 months old today. One of the biggest things of my parents having a daycare center. I love kids, and I've always wanted to be a dad. And it's really cool and a beautiful thing that I can say that my daughter has never seen me use drugs, and by the grace of God, she never will. I can't say that for everybody that's in my life. And I meet people all the time. They say, "Drew, you were an addict?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, oh believe me." I said, "I'd steal your drugs and help you find them," and we never find them. And I get that, and I don't have to live like that today. People respect me. People want to hear what I have to say, and whatever opportunities next, I'm willing to take. That God really opens up doors and shuts the ones that if I push my will on it, it's not going to work. If it's not practical, it's not spiritual. I need to leave that door shut, because when I open it up, he shows me the problems and the things that I should have listened to. And I still have character defects that I work on. People think they got it. I bet on people that wouldn't get it that's got it, and people that would get it didn't get it. And it's just you don't know. Love everybody the same. Give them the chance. Give them that hope. And do what you can. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story, and love helping people. And I look forward to my next opportunities to be a advanced alcohol and drug counselor. And that's where God's taking me. And I'm just glad that I can help, and hope my story, can be relatable to somebody out there. So thank you for letting me share my story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. I was typing over here really quickly as you said something, but I love what you said. You said the message is hope and the promise is freedom. And I love
Sure.
that. And I think that is so awesome. That is exactly, it's like it sums everything up right there in that little, little phrase, the message is hope and the promise is freedom. And so we want to thank you so much for sharing your story, for taking the time out of your morning to hang out with us. And if you or someone would like to tell your story, please reach out to us. We would love to have you be a part of our This Is My Story series. Maybe you're a family member. Maybe you are someone that's in recovery. Whichever one, it does not matter. We want to make sure that we can give a platform to individuals who want to have a voice but don't have a platform to have it. And so that's what we're doing here at Great Rivers. And so we want to thank Drew for sharing his story and allowing us to be that platform for him this morning. And like I said, if you have anybody else that would like to share their story, please reach out to us at our Great Rivers Facebook page. Or maybe you have some questions and you'd like to get in contact with Drew. You can feel free to reach out to us, and we can try our best to put you in contact with him as well. So Drew, thank you again for sharing your story, and be on the lookout for more of our This Is My Story series.